Well, tubers, I sit down to edit this video and I realized I hadn't explained at all really what I was trying to accomplish, and so the video doesn't make any sense. I got to reshoot an introduction here. This pump is going to have a 6 BTA Cummins at about 180 horsepower, I think, or 160 or 80 or something, and a Allison AT545 transmission. That's a 4-speed automatic hydraulically shifted transmission, no electronics, that was in the sort of lighter duty, medium duty stuff. It came out in school buses and some motorhomes, I think, and whatever. It's a pretty light duty transmission. But anyway, my goal here is we're going to make this transmission a manual valve body. And what that means is when we put it into gear, if you select your gear, fourth, second, third, first, whatever gear you put it in, is the gear that it takes off in and the gear it stays in. It won't ever automatically shift. It just, whatever gear you put it in is what gear it's in. And the reason for that has got several reasons for this, and there's a lot of reasons that you use a manual valve body transmission. In race cars and hot rods and stuff, that's pretty common. They'll just shift whenever you tell them to. There's no automatic about it. For a turbo 400, a C6 Ford, C4, turbo 350, 727 torque flight, you can buy manual valve body kits where you make them manual valve bodies. Well, it's not available for this transmission, so basically we're going to take it apart and try to do it ourselves. We're going to modify the valve body. Now, the reason I want to do this is this pump, if you got it in fourth gear and you're sitting there Cadillacing along, washing the well out or something, only putting up a couple 100 pounds of pressure, if something plugs up and this is in high gear and the motor's just sort of above idle, when that thing pressures up, it's going to load up and pull the engine down. It's going to sort of lock everything down. And if it was an actual automatic transmission, when that happened, it would shift fourth, second, third down to first. And obviously, if it's in first gear, it's going to have a lot more torque and a lot more power and a lot more, ability to pump pressure. And your pressure would spike and something blow up if you're not right there on the controls. And so it's important to me to get this to work. If we screw this transmission up, I've got a spare. We'll just throw it away and deal with it. The other side of that too is if you want to run the pump in fourth gear, you don't really want to have to put it in fourth and rev the engine up and have it change first to second, then second to third, and then third to fourth. You just want to take off in fourth. Anyway, that's what most of this video is going to be about, is working on this transmission. At some point in this video, I don't remember exactly chronologically how it was laid out, I had this trailer sandblasted and I flipped it upside down and painted it. It's obviously going to need painted again because we're going to weld a bunch of crap to it, but I wanted to sort of get all the nooks and crannies and underside done, and then once we're done with it, we can sort of reshoot parts of it or whatnot. Anyway, y'all see it later. It's black. Is that all? Let's get after it. Well, tubes, y'all want to see me screw some stuff up, make a mess, probably ruin a transmission? Let's do it. Contact. I just realized it's got an actual... So I just realized it's got an actual drain plug on the other side. That's actually where the dipstick is supposed to go in. You can put the dipstick, I guess, on either side. See if I can do this. Already made a mess if you didn't notice. So that's the magnetic drain plug, and it's got just a very little bit of clutch dust on it. I don't know if I said this engine and transmission was supposed to only have, like, I've forgotten, but it was less than 10,000 miles, 8,000 or 12,000 or something miles. It was really low mileage. So I've already had the oil pan off this engine. The engine's got no oil in it. I actually took the compressor off of this engine and put on my winch truck. Oh, dang it. Good Lord. So initially, I was thinking what I was going to do is I was going to lay this down on its side and then chain with a forklift to the bottom and to pick the whole engine and transmission up upside down. But I got a better idea. I think I could just take this piece of railroad tie. I'm going to do a U-turn and go back over there, get it out of the way, put this railroad tie into the bell housing, and I can just roll this thing on its side, and I think I'll be able to get to everything like that. Everything I need to get to is on this side or the bottom. I don't need to be over here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the pan off this thing. If nothing else, I think it's going to lower the amount of oil that leaks out into the shop floor. Oh, by the way, the plug that I dropped in this pan, I forgot about. It's now in the bottom of my old bucket out there, my used old waste oil drum or whatever. Well, it's got some mud in it, but other than that, it looks extremely clean. Obviously, the mud came after it was pulled. All right, I need more rags. Okay, so we've got two valves here. This is called a governor. This changes, it's got a pressure that it changes depending on the speed that it spins. And then this is the modulator valve. My mind went blank. This is how the transmission knows how much throttle you're giving it. This should just pull straight out. It does. So this is geared to the output shaft through a 90-degree helix gear. And so as your vehicle goes faster, this turns faster. Okay, we got to pull the valve body. It's got pins that keep these little caps in here, and the pins driven in from the top, so there's no way to get that apart. So it has got to come off. Okay, so here I've got the manual for AT545, the transmission that we were working on. So here's a hydraulic schematic of this transmission. So we've got the governor, the modulator valve. This is what's connected to the throttle. The selector valve. This is what's connected to the gear shifter. And we've got several shift valves. Now, pretty much, this here is the only thing we're interested in modifying. All the rest of this stuff is controlled to the logic of the transmission and the way that it shifts. But these three valves are what actually causes the first to second, second to third, third to fourth shift. This is just what applies the right clutch and disengages the right clutch for first, second, or third gear, reverse, or whatever. So we have got basically the governor here brings pressure through this green dashed line to these shift valves. These are a two-piece spool, my understanding. We're fixing to find out. This part, upper part, moves independent of the bottom part. They're divided here. And there's a spring. And so basically, when you floor it, you take off down the road. As speed increases, this pressure in this line, because the governor, here's the governor, spins faster, and these flyweights increase the output pressure from one of these ports. I haven't really digested how this works. But anyway, in this green line, the pressure increases until the pressure that's pushing on this spool valve, this plunger, collapses this spring, and this whole piece together moves up. It clicks up. And that's what causes the transmission to shift. This is first, second shift from first to second. It sends pressure down here to the relay valve. Don't get lost in the rest of this. But it clicks up. That makes it go to second gear. Again, the pressure increases. This has got a smaller plunger and probably a stouter spring for second, because you're going faster. Again, it clicks it up, clicks it in from second to third. And the same here, it's got the smallest with probably the stiffest spring. It takes the most pressure to switch from third to fourth. Here we've got a modulator valve. And what this modulator valve does is when you put the engine on the floor, it causes the modulator pressure to go basically to zero. My understanding is zero. It gets lower. When you let off the throttle, it has pressure that is applied to this plunger here, and this pressure helps push up on the spring. And so when you help push up on the spring, it requires less governor pressure, and so it shifts quicker. The other thing that this modulator valve does is it comes over here to this modulator trim regulator, which we're not going to jack with, but when you're off the throttle, a higher modulator pressure lowers the main line pressure to neutral and forward, I guess, and second clutch. Is that it? Second, yeah, first, second clutch. So it makes it shift smoother in first and second if you're part throttle or light throttle. Anyway, we're not going to jack with that. It's just extra information. So when you shift this down from drive to third or second or first, what happens is you have pressure that is reduced through this regulator hold valve to a port between these two spool valves. So it actually spreads these apart. It pushes up the spring and pushes back down on the bottom spool valve and overcomes the governor pressure and keeps it in that lower gear. Now, the way that this is designed, this regulator hold valve, they've got all this figured out so that the pressure is reduced here, so that if you're going too fast, you can't just pull it all the way down to first gear and then immediately go to first gear and blow the engine up and overspeed the engine. So here's my plan of attack. We need to modify this modulator valve so that the transmission thinks the engine is wide open throttle at all times. We need to modify the governor potentially so that the transmission thinks that the transmission is spinning at a high rate of speed, so it automatically shifts all the way to high gear. And then we need to modify these shift valves so that even if this isn't turning that fast, it will go ahead and shift first to second, second to third, and third to fourth. And then by defeating this regulator hold valve, it's going to go to fourth gear when you put it into drive. When you click it down into third, second, or first, it will, regardless of its speed, go ahead and downshift into whatever gear you put it into. Okay, so this is the modulator valve, and it's bolted right here, and I pulled these bolts off to sort of start pre-examining this so that I can sort of figure out what's going on before I'm talking about it on here. Also, I've looked through the book, and the book's got a exploded view of this and what all the valves are and what they all do. And basically, we've got a this is the hold regulator, what it was called. We've got the first gear shift valve, second gear shift valve, and third gear shift valve. So to pull this shift valve out of here, we should be able to grab this pin, pull up on the pin, and then this is going to shoot all everything out of it because it's got a spring. So this is the part of the spool valve that actually controls the shift. It is pushing against the spring with this as a being in the middle basically. And when the governor pressure pushing on this bottom overcomes the spring and pushes up, this is what causes the first to second gear shift. Now this upper spool has got the modulator pressure and it pushes up as well, and so the addition of the two of these together is what causes the spring to collapse in the first and second shift. So if you've got high modulator pressure or you're off the throttle, it shifts quicker because you've got some additional pressure pushing up on this. Okay, so what I'm thinking we can do here, we'll put all this back together. We need to simply leave this spring out, or maybe modify it and shorten it quite drastically. Okay, I think that's what I'm going to do. We're going to leave all those springs out of there, and that causes this spool valve to float back and forth. And so when you put this in gear and take off, we may still modify the governor slightly, but it'll take basically a very small amount of pressure to push this up so it shifts first to second. And we're going to do it on the next two, so it goes second to third and third to fourth. And then when we want to downshift this, when we move the selector valve, this is a selector valve, from fourth gear to third gear, what it does is it applies pressure right here in this port. And this separates it, pushes two spools apart. One goes, this one will be all the way up already, and this one is forced down with pressure, and this will cause a downshift from, this one, second to first. So I'm going to go ahead and modify the next couple. Okay, so that's the shift valve modification. This is the modulator valve. It bolts right there on top of the spacer plate. This is what's connected to the throttle. Basically, when you step on the throttle, it pushes in on this valve, and when you push in on this valve, it relieves pressure on the modulator circuit. What I'm going to do is we're going to disassemble this, and I want to put a much weaker spring, or possibly cut this spring that is in here, so that I had actually potentially thought about even leaving the spring out. That's what we'll do. We'll just leave this spring completely out. I don't see any reason that that'll be a problem. So I was actually digging through some springs looking for perhaps a light spring to put in here. I didn't find one, and again, I don't think it's necessary. I'll leave this part out. This is a device that you use. It's on all these. You turn this to the different notches, and this is how you set the preload on the spring. But we do not need it. This will have the modulator pressure at 0, which will be wide open throttle. This will keep the clutch pressure on 1-2 at the maximum. Okay, so the next thing we've got to do is find the, what do they call it? The hold valve. The hold regulator valve, 46. Okay, so this is the little valve. Okay, that's over here by the shift valve. It is right here. So let's pull this sucker out and see what it looks like. Okay, so this is pretty simple. This valve sits right in here. At this point, it's simply, this is the pressure, and it has blocked the return. And so this causes oil to flow from the pressure side back up through here, and it's connected in the transmission back to here. So as the pressure increases, it tries to push this forward, and as it comes forward, it closes off this port here, which doesn't allow oil to go in, and it also uncovers the bypass port. It allows the pressure to just be squirted out here back into the case. It looks to me like the only thing I need to do to this is to leave it in there just like it is, and it just needs a little additional spacer. So let me show you what I come up with here. I know this is really rigged, but it just fits so perfect I can't not use it. So I got a 3/8 bolt here. I ground a slot in the head, and that just fits right down perfect snug in that bore. And then this pin goes right in there, and that bolt is going to keep that valve from being able to move at all. It's got it wedged in there tight. Okay, so I'm done with this. I guess we can go put it back together. Oh, alrighty. See if we can put this thing back together. We're gonna get the governor lines lined up and started. I'm going to go ahead and reuse the filter. It looks absolutely pristine. So I got the pan cleaned out. I need a new gasket for it. I don't, you know, this is probably going to leak, but I think I'm going to go ahead and put it on and just put a few bolts in it so that I can get this stood up. We can go set it in the trailer. But this will be easy to change later. I'll get a pan gasket and a gasket for the governor and stick it on there at a later date. Alright, I'm going to pick this up and go try to stuff it in the trailer before it gets dark. Welp, I got her backed in the shop here. I think this sucker's gonna be sweet. I'm gonna go ahead and call this video. You're gonna have to wait till next time to see if the transmission works. I am cautiously optimistic, but would not be surprised if something didn't. We'll find out, I suppose. Anyway, I want to call this video. The next several days supposed to be really nice. And I may do some work elsewhere, but there's a bunch of fabrication to do. I went and bought some plate and a radiator. I got to build a radiator. I want to build a shroud for it, make it look like a industrial, you know, have a cover over the engine and everything. And there's just a lot to do. I got to get a radiator, got to get a fuel tank, got to get the transmission cooler plumbed in. I would like to make it run. Hopefully in the next video I can make it start. Anyway, appreciate you watching. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll catch you on whatever comes up next. Probably this.